When the Galactic Council first whispered the sentence, the chamber echoed with cruel satisfaction. Humanity, the unruly upstarts, had resisted every attempt at assimilation. Too violent, too stubborn, too unpredictable. The solution, as proposed by the Scythian delegates, was elegant in its simplicity. Exile them to Erythra, a Class 15 Deathworld. No species had ever lasted longer than 3 days there. The planet's atmosphere corroded steel. Its storms peeled the skin from ships. Beasts, taller than towers, prowled its valleys with jaws that could crush tanks. If the Council had wanted extinction without blood on their hands, this was the perfect sentence. And so, under watchful eyes, transports filled with thousands of humans were hurled toward that red, violent sphere. When the great carriers vanished into orbit, the Council sat back, certain the problem of mankind was finally buried. Years passed. Silence followed. At first, probes sent to orbit the Deathworld reported what was expected: wreckage, scorched shelters, and signs of catastrophic struggle. The humans were dying, just as intended. But then, curiously, the probes failed. Entire fleets of them swallowed by storms or destroyed by something. The Council grew uneasy, yet still they comforted themselves with arrogance. The humans are gone. The planet took them, as it has taken every species before. Decades. Later, a delegation was dispatched. A fleet of survey ships entered Erythra's orbit, scanning its surface. What they found chilled them to the bone. The storms were gone. The atmosphere, once choking with acid, now shimmered with green. Enormous forests stretched across continents where nothing had grown before. Cities, gleaming towers of stone and metal and something entirely new, rose across the valleys. And strangest of all, the great beasts of Erythra were not rampaging but moving in calm herds, walking alongside human-built roads. "Impossible," whispered the Scythian commander. "That world kills everything. It cannot be tamed." But it had been. When the Council sent their first landing party, the aliens expected hostility, or perhaps broken survivors who had gone feral. What they found instead stunned them into silence. The humans greeted them not with weapons, but with calm smiles. Men and women, hardened by decades of struggle, walked confidently upon soil that had once dissolved ships. They wore armor, not of steel, but of something organic, grown from the world itself, alive with faint light. One officer watched in horror as a human child, no older than 10, extended her hand to a creature the size of a starship engine. The beast, its mouth lined with teeth that had once been humanity's executioners, lowered its head, purring softly as the girl stroked its snout. The alien officer dropped his datapad. The Council demanded an explanation. The human chieftain, if he could even be called that, stood before them in a hall woven of living wood and stone. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "You thought you sent us to die," he said, "but you only gave us what we needed." The Council scoffed. "Needed? That world was uninhabitable." "Uninhabitable to you, perhaps," the human replied. "But not to us. We did what we always do. We endured. We adapted. Where you saw poison, we brewed medicine. Where you saw storms, we harnessed lightning. And where you saw monsters," he gestured outside the window, where massive reptilian beasts grazed peacefully near the human city, "we saw partners." What the Council had not understood was simple. Humanity had always been forged in hardship. They had crawled through ice ages, burned in deserts, fought wars against their own kind, and stared into the abyss of extinction before. Compared to all that, Erythra was simply another crucible. The planet had tested them with fury. The first. Years were misery. Death claimed thousands. But humanity had something no other species possessed: a refusal to surrender. They studied the soil, discovered its toxins could be neutralized by careful cultivation. They hunted the predators, not for slaughter, but for understanding. They learned the rhythm of the storms, then built turbines that captured the very winds meant to kill them. And slowly, something shifted. The planet stopped resisting, it seemed, to recognize its new tenants, adapting as they did. The storms grew weaker. The forests began to bloom. The predators learned that humans were not prey, but equals. What had been a death world became something no one in the galaxy had words for, a silent garden. By the time the Council realized what had happened, it was far too late. The humans were no longer exiles. They were rulers. The cities they had built hummed with hybrid technology, machines fueled by organic power, weapons forged from living crystal, armor that grew with its wearer. The beasts that had once devoured ships now marched at their sides as guardians, and when the Council tried to reclaim them, when fleets of warships descended from orbit, they faced a resistance unlike any they had imagined. The storms returned, lashing against alien ships but leaving human vessels untouched. The forests themselves rose, vines tearing through armored hulls. And the humans, mounted upon titanic beasts, fought with the fury of the world itself behind them. The fleet didn't last an hour. The final transmission that reached the Council before silence fell was chilling. The same human chieftain appeared, on screen, calm and resolute. His eyes burned with a light that was no longer entirely human. "You thought you could bury us," he said, "but this world was waiting for us. You called it a death world. You were wrong. It was never death. It was life. Life too strong for you to tame, but not for us." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried like thunder across the stars. "This world is ours now, and through it, so is the future." The transmission cut. From that day forward, the galaxy spoke of Erythra in hushed tones. It was no longer just a cursed world. It was the cradle of something greater, something terrifying. The silent garden was humanity's fortress, and from its soil, from its storms, from its beasts, a new empire was rising, one that no council, decree could ever contain, for humanity had been cast into fire, and fire had only made them stronger. The Galactic Council believed they had devised the perfect punishment. For decades, humanity had been a thorn in their side, too defiant to obey, too clever to suppress, and too dangerous to annihilate outright. So the Council chose a quieter execution, exile. They gathered the humans in chains, loaded them into cold steel ships, and hurled them toward Athon Prime, a Class 15 death world. The galaxy knew Athon's reputation. It was a living nightmare, a world that had swallowed entire civilizations whole. Its air was thick with toxins, its rivers ran with corrosive water, and its beasts, oh, the beasts, were legends of terror. Titans whose roars shook mountains, and whose teeth had chewed through starship hulls. No species had lasted more than 3 days there. The Council expected screams, then silence. Instead, they heard nothing. At first, everything went as predicted. The first human shelters were torn apart by storms. Venomous plants killed hundreds. And the predators came, wave after wave of massive creatures, scaled, feathered, and fanged, their eyes glowing in the red sun of Athon. Whole human camps vanished overnight. The galaxy waited smugly for the inevitable extinction. But then the days stretched into weeks, the weeks into months. And against all odds, reports filtered back. Humans still lived. The Council dismissed it as rumor. Perhaps a handful survive. They'll die soon enough. Yet the rumors persisted, and when alien scouts finally returned to Athon after years of silence, what they found froze their blood. Humanity had not only survived, they had changed the rules. The aliens who descended onto Athon's surface expected to find scattered tribes, gaunt and desperate. Instead, they found settlements, strongholds carved into mountains, reinforced with bones of monsters that dwarfed battle tanks. And the beasts, the great predators, were not rampaging. They marched alongside humans. One scout swore he saw a human warrior standing atop a beast the size of a fortress, guiding it with nothing but a word and a hand pressed to its hide. Another described children playing among creatures that once could swallow them whole. It defied reason. It defied everything. The galaxy thought it knew. How had this happened? The truth was blood and stubbornness. The first years were hell. Entire families perished in storms. Villages were wiped out by predators. But humans had something Athon had never encountered before, the refusal to yield. Where others would have fled, humans hunted. When the predators struck, humans fought. Back, not with fear, but with ingenuity. They fashioned spears from the bones of slain titans, wove armor from the hides of creatures that could withstand acid rain, and crafted poisons from the very plants that tried to kill them. The turning. Point came with the arrival of the World Breaker. It was a beast beyond imagination, taller than mountains, its roar a thunder that split the sky. When it came, even the predators fled before it. Villages were crushed beneath its steps. The council, watching from afar, smiled coldly. This is the end. Nothing can survive the World Breaker. But humanity did more than survive. They fought. For 3 days, the World Breaker ravaged the human settlements. Entire battalions were swallowed, burned, or torn apart. But humans learned with every loss. They studied its movements, mapped its weaknesses, and turned the land itself into a weapon. On the 4th day, they brought it down, not with starships, not with plasma cannons, but with ropes thicker than trees, poisoned stakes, fire, and relentless will. The battle was written into Athon's soil with blood and ash. Thousands of humans perished. But when the dust cleared, the impossible had happened. The World Breaker lay bound, and then it bowed. No one understood how or why, but the beast, broken and bleeding, lowered its head before the humans who had defeated it. It did not die in defiance, it submitted. From that day, everything changed. The predators of Athon seemed to recognize the shift. The apex had fallen, not to another beast, but to humans. The food chain bent. The monsters began to hesitate when approaching human settlements. Some fled, some watched. And slowly, impossibly, some drew closer, not as hunters, but as allies. Humans, clever as ever, seized the chance. They fed the beasts, healed their wounds, and learned their ways. Soon, warriors rode creatures that once devoured them, herds that once scattered at human approach, now marched beside them, shielding their new masters, and so humanity claimed Athon, not by erasing its horrors, but by bending them. Decades passed before the council dared return, this time with warships. They expected savages, half-wild remnants clinging to life. Instead, their fleet arrived to find a kingdom of monsters and men. Humans rode colossal beasts across plains. Flying predators carried them through storms. Settlements had grown into cities, walls of living stone guarded by creatures larger than dreadnoughts. The fleet commander sent a transmission, voice dripping with disbelief. "What have you done?" The reply came from a human leader, clad in armor of scaled hide, standing atop the bowed head of the World Breaker itself. "We survived," the human said simply. "And more than that, we ruled." The council panicked. They ordered an orbital bombardment, desperate to erase the abomination they had created. But Athon was no longer just a death world. It was humanity's kingdom. The storms rose again, shattering shields. Flocks of winged predators struck ships from the sky, and when the bombardment began, titanic beasts hurled themselves at the invaders with fury unmatched, their roars echoing across the stars. The humans did not fight alone. They fought with an army of Athon itself. The fleet was torn apart in hours. The final transmission that reached the galaxy sent ripples of terror across every star system. It showed a human army standing among beasts, the world-breaker looming behind, them like a living mountain. The human leader spoke once more, voice calm, words heavy as stone. "You thought this world would kill us, but you failed to understand. We are death's kin. We do not run, we do not kneel, and now, neither do they." He laid a hand on the world-breaker's hide. The beast roared, the sound shaking every receiver across space. "Your galaxy has rulers," the human continued, "but we are something more. We are the apex." The transmission ended. From that day, Athon Prime was no longer called a Deathworld. In every council chamber, in every alien nursery where frightened children whispered about monsters, it became known as something far worse. It was the throne world of beasts, and humanity, exiled and condemned, had become its kings. The trial was swift, the sentence even swifter. For years, humanity had been a problem the Galactic Council could not solve. They were too violent to pacify, too cunning to manipulate, and too stubborn to break. Other species bent beneath the Council's decrees. Humanity spat at them. So the Council chose exile, not execution. No, that would have made martyrs. Instead, they picked the cruelest stage imaginable, Kalor, a Class 15 death world. Its skies bled lightning. Its oceans boiled with acid tides. Its forests screamed with predators whose hunger had no end. No creature had survived Kalor more than a handful of days. To send humans, there was to bury them in the galaxy's most merciless grave. The sentence was announced with smug finality: "Let humanity be forgotten, devoured by the world they cannot master." The galaxy applauded. The first years were exactly what the Council had envisioned: chaos, blood, and despair. The human landing ships broke apart in storms, scattering survivors across poisoned continents. Every day brought new horrors: fangs in the night, venom in the air, diseases that turned lungs to ash. Entire groups vanished before they could even send a signal. But some lived, and those who lived changed. At first, the change was small. A child born on Kalor breathed air that once killed his parents in hours. A woman scarred by a venomous bite woke days later, her body burning with fever, then stronger than before. Every death carved lessons into the survivor's bones. Every generation grew less fragile, less human, and more something else. Kalor was a forge, and humanity was its metal. Decades passed. When the Council remembered them again, it was with idle curiosity. "Shall we send a probe?" they mused. "To confirm their extinction?" A fleet was dispatched. The ships pierced Kalor's turbulent skies, scanners searching for corpses. What they found instead was unthinkable. Cities, not the sterile steel towers of other worlds, but living fortresses, grown from Kalor's very bones, buildings of stone and organic crystal that pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Roads paved with strange vines that glowed in the dark, and at the heart of it all, humans walked tall. But they were no longer only human. Their skin bore faint patterns like the forests that sheltered them. Their eyes glimmered with the same unnatural light as Kalor's storms. Their bodies were hardened, adapted, as though the world itself had poured into their veins. The Council's observers trembled. What? Have they become? The answer came swiftly. When the fleet descended to reclaim the exiles, humanity did not cower. They emerged from their living cities in organized ranks, wielding weapons grown as much as forged. Blades that hummed with energy, shields that pulsed like heartbeats. And behind them came Kalor itself. The storms that had once killed them now rose at their command, lightning dancing from their hands. The predators that once hunted them marched. In disciplined herds, eyes glowing with obedience. The forests shifted, opening paths for their armies and closing them against invaders. Kalor no longer resisted them. It was theirs. The bombardment lasted mere hours before the Council fleet was reduced to burning wrecks. The survivors of that battle carried back stories of terror. "They're not human anymore," one alien officer wept. "Their blood carries the storm. Their flesh bears the poison of the soil. They don't just live on Kalor. They are Kalor." The Council recoiled in disbelief. It was impossible. No species could change so quickly, adapt so completely. Yet the evidence burned before their eyes. By condemning humanity to Kalor, they had not destroyed them. They had created something new. And then the humans sent their first message. It came not as a plea, but as a declaration. A human figure appeared on every intercepted transmission, eyes glowing faintly, skin etched with strange markings that seemed alive. "You cast us into the abyss," he said calmly. "You thought Kalor would kill us, but you were wrong." He raised a hand, and lightning arced across the screen, splitting the image with thunder. "We are not the same as we were. We have been reforged. You call Kalor a Deathworld, but for us, it was a womb." The man's voice hardened, carrying a weight that made even the most seasoned alien generals shiver. "We are its children now. We are the Deathworlders." The galaxy trembled at that word. Deathworlders. At first, the Council laughed nervously, dismissing it as empty bravado. But laughter turned to silence when the Deathworlders began to spread. Their ships, grown from the living crystal of Kalor, sliced through space faster than any known craft. Their warriors, adapted to fight in the deadliest environment known, moved with a ferocity that shredded entire armies. They did not conquer worlds with orbital fire. They landed, walked into hostile lands, and claimed them piece by piece. No, poison stopped them. No predator frightened them. No climate broke them. Every new challenge only made them stronger, and wherever they went, they carried a single message. "We are the children of Kalor, and we kneel to none." For the first time in millennia, the Council knew fear. The humans they had exiled were gone, burned away in Kalor's crucible. What remained was something the galaxy had never seen before, a species forged in death. Bonded to a world of nightmares and utterly unshakable, the Council had set out to erase humanity. Instead, they had written their rebirth. Whispers spread through every star system. Merchants spoke of humans who could walk through fire unscathed. Soldiers told of warriors who breathed toxic air like sweet oxygen, and explorers claimed to see cities that pulsed with living light. Some called them monsters. Others called them gods, but everyone called them the same name now, Deathworlders. And in the silent halls of the Council, where once they had laughed at humanity's defiance, fear reigned. For the galaxy had made a fatal mistake. They had tried to bury humanity in death, and in doing so, they had taught them how to wield it.